So, hi everyone, welcome. I'm Stephanie Murray from the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University, and you are here today for a webinar about libel insurance, media liability insurance for small independent newsrooms in New Jersey. So there's a couple reasons why we organized the webinar today. I'm going to tell you about those. I'm going to hand it over to Joe to talk about some technology, basic housekeeping stuff for today's webinar, and then we'll turn it over to our presenter today, Bryan. So the Center for Cooperative Media, in collaboration with the New Jersey Civic Information Consortium, has made it a priority to help ensure that small and independent newsrooms, especially in the state of New Jersey, have the insurance that they need. We have found through surveys and through just anecdotal conversations that many of the partners that we support through the New Jersey News Commons are not insured. Many folks don't have media liability insurance, and this is incredibly important for reasons that Bryan Fennell is going to tell us about in a couple of moments. And as part of our effort to try to help you get insured, we want to make sure that you understand what media liability insurance is, how it can help you, how these policies work. There are different brokers that you can use in the United States to get this kind of insurance, and several New Jersey news organizations use brokers that are offered through the local independent online news publishers, Lion, or the Institute for Nonprofit News, INN's brokers. And Bryan is here today with Epic to talk about an access policy that was recently negotiated in part by Dick Tofel. And we'll drop a link in the chat to Dick's announcement about this. Dick Tofel, who is one of the founders of ProPublica and is now doing consulting, worked with some private philanthropy to help negotiate a policy and help get the word out about the importance of media liability insurance, especially in this current climate. So this is another option for you. And folks have found that it's a very affordable option, and it covers a lot of bases that some other policies don't, which we can also talk more about. So that's why we're here today. The center, in addition to providing this webinar, is happy to help connect you with other brokers if that's what you want. If you need any help filling out your application, we're happy to help you if you need that, or connect you to someone who can help you. And we also have compiled some resources that you may need as you go through the application. If there's things that they ask you to have that you don't have already in place, such as a corrections policy or freelance contracts, we're happy to help you get those things in place as well. So our support doesn't end today with the webinar, it just starts. Our goal is to make sure that you are insured so that you are protected.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Stephanie and Joe, for allowing me to come on the webinar here for everybody. So, my name is Bryan Fennell. I've been doing this for 31 years. I know you're all thinking I look way too young, so I appreciate that. But one of the things I think the easiest way to start on why we kind of did this, and I may be giving you too much information here, but I promise you, I will not go long. I think Joe said he had about 15 minutes for me. I don't think I'm going to be talking for 15 minutes. So I'm pretty sure that we'll do it less. And I've done a couple of these, and I found the Q&A part of this being super important. So I want to make sure that we have enough time. And I know everyone's time is important. But to kind of give you a backstory on why we did this, Epic is a national brokerage or national agency, stands for Edgewood Partners Insurance Center. So we write in all 50 states. So I'm based in New York. I know this webinar is really for Jersey, but we write in all 50 states. And maybe about 6 months ago or so, Dick Tofel and Ann Webb, who's not on this call, are friends, and he was just kind of complaining about the state of insurance, and Ann's in insurance, and so we said, you know what? For the guys who have 5 million in revenues and up, there's plenty of insurance agents for them, right? There's markets for that. They have a risk manager possibly, and but the startups and the kind of the way that news and content is disseminated now is much different than it was previously. It could be in a form of a podcast, a newsroom. There's so many different ways to disseminate information, and a lot of these startups and companies with 2 million and under in revenue is really what this is for. Either had no insurance, didn't know what insurance was, didn't know why they should have insurance. Somebody said, "Hey, go get media liability insurance," and they went, "Okay," and went to Google and typed it in, and click the first link. That's literally what they did. Never spoke to an insurance agent, didn't know what they bought, didn't know anything. So, and probably paid too much money for it. So we kind of figured out, you know what? Let's see if we can do this, and we can do it on a large scale. We have a lot of pull being a national agency. Let's say speak to a couple of different companies, Axis being the most receptive in this particular case, and say, hey, if we can give you 30 to 50 new pieces of business for the year. Give us preferred pricing, better retentions, broader coverage, kind of negotiate on a grander scale was kind of the plan. And you know what, if we thought if we could do that, selfishly, we do this for a living. We don't this we are a for-profit business. We thought that we could make money. We thought the insurance company would be able to make money and fill a need. I will tell you, I've been doing this a long time. I've done a couple of different national programs. I've never seen a more underserved group of companies or organizations in my life. I will tell you one of the common themes, and I've done similar things to this, some on a bigger scale, some on a smaller scale. One of the common themes or common things that people said were, I've never spoken to an insurance agent about this. Never. Just I've emailed, I've clicked links. I didn't even know what I was buying. So that really found something. When I tell you that in the first 2 weeks, now this is a national, thing, but we probably heard from, and I have Laura Rance on the call. She could call me a liar and correct me here, but 50 to 75 and two. It was, I had to bring more people in just to respond to the overwhelming. And we've written insurance for quite a few of them. The premiums are on reasonable. I don't want to say cheap because all insurance is expensive, but pretty reasonable, a little more reasonable than what's out there in the marketplace. But more importantly, filling a need. And really our hope and on the selfish handle, you say, all right, well, why is a national brokerage writing all these really small policies? You can't make a lot of money. Well, the answer is we don't. But really the hope is that, we write the insurance for Joe, you're on my screen, I'm picking on you. We write Joe's insurance, and you know what? 5 years from now, he's, $25 million in revenue, and now we're making real money. We're his risk advisor, we're his insurance agent. He probably has an accountant. We're his insurance agent, right? He has a lawyer. We're his agent. So we like to think that we offer some professional services, especially on the smaller scale that are being offered to the larger companies all the time, right? Because nobody, if you think about it, the average insurance commission is 10%. So if I write a $2,000 premium policy, I make $200. I lost money. All right, just on this conversation, we've already lost money, and then we got to pay other people, and so you need to be able to do this on a grand scale, which I think we could do. And again, really more importantly, we did this to satisfy a need, and I'm blown away with that particular need. So a couple of highlights that I want to bring out that are super important. And again, this access policy that we're working with, and we work with other companies as well. We do work with CNA, but access is really the main driver because the premiums are going to be really competitive. One of the things that they do that is pretty rare on the smaller end is the hammer clause, or basically, so if you get sued as a news organization and you don't want to settle, right? A lot of times people complain about insurance companies. Hey, I had a car accident and they settle for $4,000. I did nothing wrong. Why are you paying them? Right? You give up your right as a policyholder to settle that claim, right? The insurance company has power of attorney. They settle the claim for $4,000 because it's cheaper than fighting for $25,000 in lawyer fees and winning. So a lot of times they settle. On these policies, it's important. Now, your reputation as a news organization is super important. So they do have it, they do work with you, and they have what's called, they don't have the hammer clause in that case, where they'll say, hey, you know what, Joe, you want us to fight this? You give the reasons why, by the way, and we're going to go fight this for you, right? It's a really unique part of this policy. There are other companies who are offering it. So this is not, but it's rare on these smaller policies. Obviously, there's defamation, libel, and copyright infringement, and the things that you kind of think you would need. But in today's environment, the craziness that's going on in the news world and litigation, and 5 years ago, everyone thought, wow, there's so much case law, and what am I worried about as a news organization, and I don't get sued. Well, it's kind of changing. And I'm not saying when all these high profile cases are going to go anywhere. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm not a lawyer. But it's a little troubling to see what's going on in the industry. So, it's really important, even if you did nothing wrong. And even if you're in a state like New York, as a slapback law, right? So I don't know if everyone's familiar with that is, but there's a lot of states, and I'm not sure if Jersey has it. I could look. But there's a lot of states, if you get sued as a news organization, because in theory they're trying to shut you up, right? We're just going to sue them because we have big pockets and we want them to retract their story and shut them up and do all that. If they do that and you go to court and prove that's what they did, they pay all your lawyer fees, there's penalties. It's a big deal. So not every state has it. Some states do. But we're starting to see craziness, for lack of a better word. So, the only other thing that I would tell you that I do want to point out that is important to have is the E&O part of this, right? So, human beings make mistakes. If they didn't, I wouldn't have a job, right? For the most part. So, they do make mistakes. We have insurance to cover ourselves. If Joe says, "Hey, you know what? I want to buy homeowners insurance from you," I say, "Sure, no problem, Joe. I got you covered." My wife calls me, yelling me about something. I
Appreciate you.
forget to do it. The house burns down. I go, "Oh my God, Joe, I'm so sorry." Well, we have insurance because I made a mistake, right? And that's kind of what this is for your organization, including, you published material and you made a mistake. You didn't mean to put it in there. It was proofread. You did everything you're supposed to. It's not there, and now you're getting sued. So, the policy itself, in terms of access, is as broad as anything that I've seen. Could someone find somewhere a policy that's manuscripted? I'm sure. But for this size, it's as broad as I've ever seen in my 30 plus years of doing this. Um, and I will tell you, 9 out of 10 times, if you have insurance, and this is gonna, I apologize in advance, I'm gonna sound like a salesperson here, so I don't mean to, but 9 times out of 10, the premiums are just as competitive or actually saving you money. And we've really worked out what I think is a pretty good deal. And again, we are not the only insurance agent that offers this, offers media liability. So this really is, obviously, we would like you to use us if you choose to go that route. But again, this is really as much informational as anything else. So that's my little spiel and kind of what we've done and why we did it. And hopefully, there's some good questions out there that I can answer, and we can kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian. And so
Yeah.
we did send the application
Okay.
to everyone on the call ahead of time. So folks, I don't know if anyone was able to look at that, but you have the application and that other sheet as well that comes with it. We have Dick's column and then some of the resources that we put together. So does anyone have any questions right now that you want to ask Brian? You can go ahead and unmute. You can raise your hand. You can drop a question in the chat. And if not,
Actually,
I'll
just I
start.
just had I just had one question, just so I'm
Yeah.
curious, and then I'll shut up. I promise.
No, that's okay. You don't have to shut up.
Of the dozen or so people that are on the call that have, how many people actually carry media liability insurance or media E&O or professional liability? They all kind of mean the same thing.
Yeah, yep.
I'm just curious, because I found that about 50% carry it in terms of those smaller ones. Say 250,000 in revenue and under. About 50% carry it, 50% don't. So I was just curious.
Yep, yep. If folks don't mind dropping in the chat, that'd be
Drop
great.
a 1 in the chat if you have it. Drop a 2 in the chat if you don't.
And then Brian, could you just expand on that for just a second? And it's called different things. What are the different like titles this is called? And it all means generally the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it does. So you will hear the term, media E&O, media
You know,
liability, professional
liability,
liability.
professional liability.
Like I said, every carrier, ultimately, it comes down to the contract or the policy, right? That's actually what you're
Yeah,
buying. So there's no, I wish I had a really good reason of saying, hey, you know what? CNA calls it professional liability because of this, and Access calls this media liability because of this, and
yeah.
there is no real particular
Okay.
answer. So
But
if
we're
you
all
hear the
generally
term,
talking about the same thing though.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And libel
And
insurance too, which is what Dick calls it.
yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah,
All right.
yep,
So
yep, okay.
libel being the most important part of this, by the way. Yes.
Yeah.
There's other parts. There's misrepresentation and the misleading content. There's a bunch of other
Yeah.
parts of media liability, but libel is really,
Yep. Yep.
the most important part.
And on the the chart that Dick had shared, the premiums, if for most of the folks in the call, they're going to be like less than 250 annual revenue, or some maybe a couple who are 250 to 500. Is that, have the premiums been coming back about $3,000, or have they been coming back less than that? Because I know I talked to a couple of folks who recently got insured and it was less than that.
Yeah. So you know, when you do a newsletter or you do a call like this, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to kind of skew slightly higher because I've been, like I said, when I've been doing this, very few
Yeah.
people complain if we told them, hey, you have an estimate about 3,000 and you come at 2,000. People are okay with that generally. They don't really get upset about it. So I would tell you that the lowest premium that we've quoted and bound coverage for, or even quoted, was about 1,100. I think it was
Oh, okay.
1,050 or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would, but that's the exception. That has, I would think the majority are coming in between 2,000 and 2,250. So somewhere in that area. So figure, you know, 150 to $200 a month, somewhere in that particular, you know, in that range. Now, that being said, we've bound some that are a little more edgy, for lack of a better word, or a better
Mhm.
example. You know, so if you're talking about, you know, high school varsity sports, it's like it's $100 a month. It's pretty
Yeah.
reasonable, and you know, yeah, you could make a mistake that causes someone to have, you know, something happen with a college, whatever. But yeah, it's pretty innocuous and not that big a deal. You know, if you're writing about, you know, what's going on at the southern border, it might be a little bit more expensive, you know, because of, you know, there's more things that could happen, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I think the highest that I've seen for the smaller ones was maybe 7,000. So,
Okay.
and that's pretty rare. So the
Yeah.
majority have been around that 2,000 to 2,250. So a
Okay.
little lower
That
than what,
helps. Yeah.
yeah, a little lower than what's in the article. But if you know, if you thought to yourself, hey, I could ballpark around 3 grand, I think that for the majority of people on this call, that's going to be pretty safe.
Okay.
But
And
yeah, it's just,
also, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's
And
just the application, and the application can be a little annoying.
it's a beast.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know, but I will tell you that if you are able to get through it, and if you actually just sit and do it, it takes like 5 minutes. It's actually easier than it actually looks. It's just
Yeah.
a little overwhelming to look at it. But once
Yep.
you get through it, there's usually not a lot of additional questions, and they usually give you a
Yeah.
quote in like 2 days, so it's not
That was my
terrible.
next question, is what's the turnaround time? So
Yeah,
usually it's pretty quick. Okay.
it's pretty quick. Yeah. And now again, this is new, so the
Yeah.
underwriter's super excited and really, you know, a year from now it might be 5 days. So, but right now the
Oh,
turnaround time
sure.
has been,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, we've had so much success
Yeah.
that yeah, it's been really, the turnaround time has been
Yeah.
extraordinary, as a
And
matter
how
of fact.
quickly can coverage start?
Once we get a quote, it's just some signed applications and premiums.
Right.
That's, I mean, it
Right.
could be the same
Right.
day. So, and if you
Okay.
said to me, Brian, I'm so sorry, you know what, I have a contract, I got to have this in place by the end of today.
Yeah.
If it's nothing too crazy, we probably can do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Have you had any news organization applications that come through that they don't have enough like of the infrastructure you'd want to make them insurable? Are there things that news organizations can do to make sure that their premium is the best it can be and that they are as insurable as possible?
yeah, so I will tell you that. So we have, Laura, correct me, Laura, if I get it wrong. I don't think we've had any accounts or any clients or any organizations not get a quote yet. Now, Axis has declined a few, right? So they have said, hey, you know what? On this
Okay.
particular organization, we're not comfortable with this. We don't want to offer terms. So
Gotcha.
part of our job, we are brokers, right? So part of our jobs is to make sure we get the best, you know, best quotes and the best terms for everybody. So
Yep.
we do go to CNA and we do go to, you know, some of the other
Okay.
accounts, I don't know, QBE, you know, that kind of stuff. So you know, we have had situations where we were unable to get a quote from Axis just because of the content, or investigative journalism is one that they're a little on the fence with. So, but again, they do underwrite that. But I would tell you that if you're able to get through the Axis application, and I could use that application for everybody, not just Axis, because it really is a
Okay.
thorough
Okay.
application.
Yep.
We don't ask you to fill out another one. We can usually get quoted pretty quickly, and usually the terms are pretty competitive.
Okay. Great. Other questions for folks from folks in the group? Raise your hand, unmute, drop it in the chat. This is pretty straightforward, but if anyone has any questions, please, 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 now is your time to ask. And we'll sit with some uncomfortable silence for about 30 seconds.
Listen, you know, I said this is a topic that, and as I've told you, everyone knows they're supposed to have this, right? And they see in the news every day of some stuff happening. What I found is
Yeah.
that and I said people, the organizations that I've spoken to that have a policy in place, they have, and again, and maybe the people on this call, and I could be getting this completely wrong, and maybe you're the exception, but most go to Google, they type in, what should I get for insurance for a
Yeah.
newsroom? And they go, you should have media liability. And they click the first link, which is Hiscox usually. And they go, all right, give me a quote. Hiscox give them a quote with like 5 questions, by the way. And you should read the form of what you're actually buying. And then they go, all right, they give a credit card and they have insurance. They don't know what they actually have. They hope that it covers them. And to be really honest, you know, they said these carriers are willing to give you about, you know, usually $1 million per occurrence, and most of these are occurrence policies, which we like. Most of them are $1 million per occurrence, so you can kind of think logically. Axis is a very large insurance company. They're publicly traded. They're really good. They're an A-plus carrier. You know, if they're going to give you $1 million of media liability insurance for $2,000 or $3,000, they're not overly concerned. They know how much case law is in their back pocket, and they know how they have their own lawyer and all that stuff. So just kind of think in your head, well, how many policy do they need to write to cover a claim? That's almost
Yeah.
how you have to look at this. So you know, what we don't want to have happen is for a relatively reasonable premium, and I don't want to say cheap because all insurance is expensive. And right now, if you have no insurance, your insurance cost is 0. So if you go from 0 to $1,000, that's a huge increase. So,
Yeah.
but all you do is, you know, one time someone files, you know, subpoena even. It might not even be anything wrong. And what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, do you go, all right, do I Google, I got subpoenaed, what do I do? You know, because, you know, maybe you call your homeowner's carrier, go, hey, can I? The answer is no.
Yeah.
But so unless you have, you know, a backing of an insurance company or you are large enough to have your own lawyers, even if it's a frivolous claim, you still have to respond to it. You know, the lawyer's going to want a $10,000 retainer just to talk to him. So we think in today's environment, it's really important to put something in place.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially for, I mean, folks who, if you own a home, you know, there's so many things that you are putting at risk if you don't have some sort of insurance, and also your corporate structure set up appropriately to protect yourselves. So Bryan, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
We really
absolutely.
appreciate it. And thank you for everyone for
Absolutely.
being on this call. If you have any questions, you can let us know, let Bryan know. Bryan, do you mind dropping your email in the chat for everyone? And is it okay for us to share that when we email
Yeah,
folks as well? Cool.
absolutely.
And we really hope that everyone gets insurance. We will be putting this information on our website along with some additional information about insurance and brokers. And hopefully, I mean, hey, you guys could all be insured by the end of the week if you give it a shot. If you need any help filling out your application or whatnot, please let us know, because we want to make sure that you are protecting your investment in your local communities, because we want to help make sure that our local communities in New Jersey still have access to news and information. So thank you, Bryan. Thank you,
Perfect.
Dick.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
afternoon.